So there's some of the spider web, the octopus of wires. Oh, and that's my friend KW. Say hello, KW.
How you doing there, fellas? Americans?
Yep.
This is the octopus, the symbolic nature of the different...
Juxtaposition.
There you go.
Of
I've heard that a couple times.
So, a show about nothing, but it has something.
No, we're talking about the Ron Paul situation. We've been discussing that you've been unable to sleep for about 4 straight days. It's about time you got it off your chest. And remember, talk like Brinkley, David Brinkley. Emphasize certain words in each phrase so that it makes you sound intellectual.
What's your take on Ron Paul? Let's start right there.
Well, number one, I've not seen any video of Ron Paul speaking about this situation. Thereby, I think he took a step back. Said, "Rand, do what you want, man. You know." But he doesn't share my views on a lot of things, so I can't really get on air and talk about this. And so Rand went ahead, okay, and did it, and lent the support to Romney. But Ron Paul's not too satisfied with how this has turned out. I think that's a pretty good phrase. Not too satisfied.
Yeah.
I don't think Ron Paul's satisfied with the situation.
Well, how does he kind of get back whatever satisfaction he needs?
Revenge is not in his vocabulary. It's the system. He's getting up there in years. He should really hand over the fight to someone else and spend some time with his wife.
Well, I guess one thing I wish he would do as he winds down is to deal with the voter fraud. Make that a big part of his message at the moment.
You know what he could do the rest of his life and still spend a lot of time with his wife? And do the college circuit and teach the young kids of today his beliefs on not only that, but also the Fed. He can talk about that. Now, if he really wants to get along with the college crew, then he can start talking about the legalization of drugs. But those are the 4 things he talks about. The thing you mentioned, what was that? Oh,
voter fraud,
very important.
The delegate, the media slander. I mean,
That.
it's almost criminal the way he was slandered in the press.
Yes.
And of course, the supporters picked up that fight because he would look like sour grapes or whatever if he talked about being shunned by the mainstream media.
Well, what would you think if this is how it ends for Ron Paul? He spends a lot of time with his wife and goes on the college circuit giving speeches about basically those 4 items all over the entire United States. Making some money doing so, don't get me wrong, but also still spreading the word of his beliefs. I think it'd be a good way to go. He's still spreading the word like he's doing now, but it's not where delegates are counted. That dream's over with, Joe. It's ended.
But that's what I mean. But it ended through fraud. He was defrauded out of all that. The primary polls were hacked by computer systems. There are exit polls, even down in Texas, that show that 60% of the people willingly came up to this pollster, and of those 60%, roughly 70% said that they voted for Ron Paul. Yet, Ron Paul only got like 13%. And they are suggesting that perhaps there was just a vote flip. Everyone who voted for Paul, that vote counted toward Romney down there in Texas.
Right.
And so then the GOP has its ace in the hole with the primary poll and can manipulate the delegate process and say that the state parties are going to adhere to the wishes of the people and follow the poll, which was hacked and jacked. And then at the delegation process, they run over the liberty movement, Ron Paul revolutionaries who understand that they got to put their body on the gears and on the levers to make it stop. And so they're getting involved at the delegate process and challenging the GOP establishment that has hacked and whacked all the machines and all the processes. And so if this liberty movement is going to continue, we have to have Ron Paul dealing with this year's fraud so that next year's election we can have a little more confidence in it. But by just gracefully bowing out and merging into the mainstream republicanism will never address how defrauded Dr. Paul was in this past, well, in the past two elections where he ran for president.
Still think he should go to the collegiate circuit, give a lot of speeches about that. In fact, that being the top subject, but also discussing some of his other views on legalization of drugs, the investigation of the Fed,
foreign policy.
Yes, the getting out of the wars. Of course, he's got to keep speaking, but I don't think it should be through this political system, because they fucked him. Now he says, "Fuck you." Oh, I'm sorry. What I meant to say was I had some kind of I got epilepsy. I've had it since I was 8. And this epilepsy is a form that makes me cuss.
No, that would be
and
Tourette's.
You know,
Tourette's.
those tics, things. Fuck, fuck. So you cannot hold Joe accountable for me cussing on air because I have this disease. Anyway, what was we speaking of?
So, what Ron Paul does going into the sunset.
Yeah, he gives speeches at colleges, building support for his beliefs, and thereby the political front that's going to come from this. But Rand Paul has sort of shot his shot his toe. Shot his toe with the gun. He shot his toe with the gun, and he's out of this. You're going to have to find a new face.
Yeah, I don't think that Rand. I think he kind of alienated himself from some of the hardcore grassroots liberty.
I told you this, Joe. If he has curly hair because he has curly hair, that's okay. But if he's putting something in his hair to make his hair curly, then this means he might be a little bit of a fake. I know this is simplicity, and it's fine.
I bet he has curly hair. Why wouldn't he?
I do. I think so too.
I mean, what guy tries to curl his hair?
I used to. School of Physical Education. They told you to get you'd get perms back there, and then you'd never have to comb your hair. Which I don't comb my hair now anyway. We digress though upon more important items. Ron Paul. I told you he's going to get the word out by, and this is why it translates into fraud, because he had such a big following among college students, and I think statistics will bear me out on this. A high percentage of college students vote.
I mean,
do they or do they not, Joe?
Not historically, but I think this time around,
why don't they? Then?
I think they're distracted, disillusioned in the process, never even educated in the process.
But Ron Paul wakes those people up.
Exactly,
they would have voted.
They are, and that is the movement.
But that shows the fraud, because his power with the students should have been so high that he should have did what you said he did, which is win those delegates.
And the other thing is, they
don't want him there, Joe.
Ron also says that the movement is this young movement, but I think where the big media fraud is because they rely on the mainstream media for their information, whereas young people are all technological and on the internet. The fraud also included the media manipulation of older folks who would gladly go with Ron Paul's message, if they and understand his logic and his constitutionalism, if they had access to it. And they defrauded him by slanting, ignoring, tainting, this whole campaign of Dr. Paul's. Maligning him.
How are they being denied this, what you say, internet? They got
old folks?
Their libraries. There's libraries.
Right, no, but just old folks are in the routine of, television. Like, think of, your mom or dad or some of the old folks sitting in nursing homes. They just sit there.
I think all elderly people should be hooked up to the internet. I really believe that.
I kind of agree. But the internet is complicated, and some of them just don't want to fidget with things. They feel like they're too old to learn, that you can't break their old ways of. And they get a lot of comfort from the television. And there's a lot of manipulation going on in these people's minds. I mean, look at it. It's gone on for probably 2 or 3 generations right in front of our face. I mean, this $16 trillion debt that we're in just didn't happen overnight. And I'm not going to blame the 2 generations ahead of me because they maliciously set up this or let this country go to hell in a handbasket. I'm just saying that they were victims of the mind control, the media mind control. Now we're in this problem. But what did they lose that we need to gain? Civic duty, civic action, participation in politics, making politics and political discussions acceptable discussions. They say don't talk about religion and politics in a bar or wherever. But my argument is those are the 2 most important things you should be talking about. I mean, back in the day during the Revolutionary War, they would meet at the bar. Specifically, that was where the movement started in these communities, and they would discuss the dire straits that they, as a colony, were in, and how they were going to resist the statist British government.
Do you know why that was? Because they didn't have the NFL, the NBA, the golf. They didn't have the tennis to distract them.
Right.
So then the government brought in this thing of sports.
Yeah.
To kind of like brainwash you into getting away from the real problems.
Yeah,
which we're discussing right today.
And it was bread and circus, and the Romans used it. And it's a known way to distract, and sports obviously is, and that's what our culture has become. We're more inclined to have as heroes sports figures than free thinkers, great-minded scientists or philosophers, or more people can name their quarterback of their local team than they could the senator from their home state. I bet. I'm thinking.
Plus the add-on effect of sexuality on TV
right.
has people breeding, and what the theory is that the more people, the more taxes they pay. By the way. But also, the best survive.
But I don't think that's true. The more people, the more tax. I think the why they're sexing up culture is, again, another mind control technique.
Yes, but to have sex and then to have be pregnant.
They call that the fear. Is another reason for fear. That is a way to sex the culture, because when someone's scared, they go into what I heard Alex Jones and David Icke talk about, the lower brain. They call it the reptilian brain. It's the lower function that deals with basic survivalism. And procreation is when you feel threatened, it's a biological reaction that you try to procreate. And so fear sexes culture. Why are they trying to sex culture? Again, that's the bread and circus. That's a sort of to change morality. I'm not going to call it good or bad, but look at what happens when you sex the culture and fathers and mothers are not acting like fathers and mothers, they're acting like wild dogs. And breaking up the family, and what does that do? That has repercussions for the children who have the best fighting chance in this world when they get attention from the mother and the father equally. But when you sex the culture, distract people, change the priorities, change the morality, then you break the family, and boom, you break the kid, and then you can mind control the kid. And you can keep him in this system of control that you've developed, which
The
includes
long and
prison,
winding road.
which is the drug war. So you fractionalize the family, you fracture the family, then the child looks to his peer group for direction. The peer group is getting their direction from popular culture, media, trendiness, and values and morality go out. And then there's a propensity for these kids who are not being steered properly to commit deviant acts, which puts them in the system, the prison industrial complex. This world is just full of prisons.
Full of what?
Prisons
Yes.
of the mind, physical prison. I mean, I might just make up a term: 7 layers of prison that we have to escape from right now from this state of the world. Anyway.
Anyways, Ron Paul, that's what he's fighting for.